My sister Madison was always the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect fiance. Everyone said her wedding would be the event of the year in our small town of Cedar Falls. What they didn't know was that behind her flawless smile, Madison was hiding something so devastating it would turn our family into strangers overnight. By the time the last guest left that reception hall, 3 marriages would be over, 2 people would be in jail, and I would discover that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The first sign something was wrong came 3 weeks before Madison's wedding. I was at my parents' house helping Mom address invitations when Madison burst through the front door, her usually pristine appearance disheveled. Her designer blazer was wrinkled, her hair escaped from its perfect bun, and there were actual tears in her eyes, something I hadn't seen since we were kids. "Madison, what's wrong?" Mom immediately dropped her pen, but Madison just shook her head and rushed upstairs to her old bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Mom and I exchanged glances. Madison Pierce didn't slam doors. Madison Pierce didn't cry. Madison certainly didn't show up anywhere looking less than magazine-ready. She was the daughter who graduated valedictorian from Northwestern, landed a corporate law position at Chicago's most prestigious firm by age 25, and was marrying Trevor Hoffman, a doctor whose family practically owned half of Cedar Falls. "She's probably just stressed about the wedding," Mom said, but her voice carried uncertainty. "You know how perfectionist she is." I nodded, but something felt off. Madison thrived under pressure. During law school, the more stressful things got, the more composed she became. This wasn't wedding stress. This was panic. Over the next few days, Madison's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She would disappear for hours without explanation, claiming she was handling wedding details, but when I offered to help, she'd snap that everything was under control. She stopped returning Trevor's calls immediately, letting them go to voicemail before calling him back hours later with elaborate excuses about client meetings and venue emergencies. The breaking point came during her bridal shower. Aunt Carol had organized the entire event at the country club, complete with a champagne fountain and enough flowers to stock a funeral home. Madison sat in the center of it all, mechanically opening gifts and forcing smiles that didn't reach her eyes. When someone asked about her honeymoon plans to Italy, she froze completely, staring at the wrapping paper in her hands like she'd never seen it before. "Madison?" Cousin Sarah prompted gently. "The honeymoon? Trevor said you're flying to Rome the day after the wedding." "Right. Yes, Rome." Madison's response was robotic. She set down the gift, expensive crystal champagne flutes, and excused herself to the bathroom. She didn't come back for 20 minutes. I found her in the country club parking lot, sitting in her BMW with the engine running and air conditioning blasting, despite it being a pleasant 70-degree day in May. "Okay, what's really going on?" I demanded, getting into the passenger seat uninvited. "And don't tell me it's wedding jitters. You've been planning this wedding for 18 months. You have color-coded binders and backup plans for your backup plans." Madison's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "I can't," she whispered finally. "Emma, I can't tell anyone. Not yet." Can't tell anyone what? But she was already shutting down again, transforming back into the composed, untouchable version of herself that had carried her through law school and corporate boardrooms. "Nothing. I'm fine. Just pre-wedding nerves." The lie came out smooth as silk, but I caught the slight tremor in her voice. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of final preparations. Madison seemed to pull herself together, throwing herself into last-minute details with an almost manic energy. She triple-checked flower arrangements, reorganized seating charts, and had heated phone conversations with the caterers about napkin folding techniques. To everyone else, it looked like typical bride perfectionism. But I noticed she never talked about the actual marriage, only the wedding. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Hoffman family's lakeside estate, a sprawling property that had been in Trevor's family for 3 generations. The house overlooked Lake Morrison, with perfectly manicured gardens stretching down to a private dock.
Everything was elegant, expensive, and exactly what you'd expect for Cedar Falls' wedding of the year. Trevor's father, Dr. Richard Hoffman, gave a toast about how proud he was to welcome Madison into their family. He spoke about her achievements, her character, her bright future with Trevor. Madison smiled and nodded at all the right moments, but I noticed she barely touched her salmon or the wine.
Trevor, meanwhile, seemed oblivious to any tension. He was practically glowing with happiness, telling anyone who would listen about their honeymoon plans, their new house, their 5-year plan. He had no idea that his bride-to-be looked like she was attending her own funeral. After dinner, as guests mingled on the terrace overlooking the lake, I cornered Madison near the garden fountain. "This is your last chance to tell me what's wrong," I said quietly, "because tomorrow, in front of 300 people, you're going to marry Trevor. And if there's something you need to get off your chest, now is the time." Madison looked out over the dark water, her reflection wavering on the fountain's surface. For a moment, her carefully constructed mask slipped, and I saw something that made my stomach drop. Fear. Raw, desperate fear. "What if," she said slowly, "what if everything everyone thinks they know about someone is wrong? What if the person they think is perfect has done something so terrible that it would destroy everyone who loves them?" "Madison." "Hypothetically," she added quickly, but her voice was shaking now. "Just hypothetically." "Hypothetically," I replied carefully, "I'd say that person needs to trust the people who love them. Real love doesn't disappear because someone isn't perfect." She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Emma. Some things are unforgivable." Before I could respond, Trevor appeared at her side, sliding his arm around her waist with easy familiarity. "There you are, beautiful. Mom's looking for you. Something about the bouquet for tomorrow." He pressed a kiss to her temple, and Madison closed her eyes like it physically hurt. "Of course," she said, slipping seamlessly back into bride mode. "Emma, I should go handle this." As I watched her walk away, Trevor chatting cheerfully about morning preparations and photographer schedules, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening breeze off the lake. Whatever secret Madison was carrying, it was big enough to make her question everything, including whether she should be getting married at all. But it was too late to stop anything now. The wedding was in 12 hours, the guests were arriving in the morning, and Madison was clearly determined to go through with it, no matter what it cost her. I just had no idea yet what it was going to cost the rest of us. The morning of Madison's wedding dawned gray and humid, with storm clouds gathering over Lake Morrison. I arrived at the Hoffman estate at 7 a.m. to find absolute chaos disguised as elegant preparation. The florists were arguing with the wedding planner about centerpiece height, the caterers were frantically setting up the reception tent, and someone had discovered that the string quartet's cellist had called in sick. But none of that compared to the drama happening in the bridal suite. Madison's maid of honor, her law school friend Jessica Chen, met me at the top of the grand staircase with wild eyes and a coffee-stained bridesmaid's dress. "Thank God you're here," she whispered urgently. "Something's seriously wrong with Madison. She's been in the bathroom for an hour, and she won't come out. Your mom's been trying to get her to eat something, but she just keeps saying she's not hungry." I knocked on the bathroom door. "Madison, it's Emma. Can I come in?" Silence. Then the sound of the lock turning. Madison sat on the marble floor in her silk robe, her back against the clawfoot bathtub. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her hands were shaking as she stared at her phone. "I can't do this," she said without looking up. "Emma, I can't walk down that aisle." My heart stopped. 300 guests were already arriving downstairs. The ceremony was in 4 hours. "Madison, what are you talking about? You love Trevor. You've been planning this wedding for—" "I don't love him." The words came out flat, emotionless. I never loved him, not the way he deserves. I sat down on the cold floor beside her. "Okay, let's say that's true. Why are you realizing this now?
Why didn't you figure this out 6 months ago, a year ago? She finally looked at me, and I saw something that made my blood freeze. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was guilt so deep it seemed to be eating her alive. Because 6 months ago, I thought I could live with it. I thought I could be the perfect wife, have the perfect marriage, and nobody would ever have to know. Her voice cracked. But seeing him with his family last night, listening to his father talk about trust and honesty and family values, I realized I'm about to destroy the most genuinely good person I've ever met.
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Madison, you're scaring me. What did you do? She was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she held up her phone, showing me a text message thread. The contact name at the top made my stomach drop. Daniel. Daniel Rodriguez, Madison's college boyfriend, the one our parents had hated because he was beneath her, the one she'd broken up with when she decided to focus on law school and her career. He's been texting me for 3 months, she said quietly, ever since he found out about the engagement from social media. I scrolled through the messages. They started innocently enough, congratulations, wishing her well, but they quickly turned more personal. References to inside jokes, shared memories, late-night conversations that clearly crossed boundaries for someone engaged to another man. Madison, this is just texting. It's not just texting. She took the phone back, her fingers trembling as she scrolled to more recent messages. Last month, when I told you I was in Chicago for that client meeting, I met him for dinner. And then, it wasn't just dinner. The bathroom suddenly felt airless. You cheated on Trevor. It gets worse. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Daniel's getting divorced. His marriage has been falling apart for 2 years, and seeing me again made him realize he never got over me. He wants me to leave Trevor. He wants us to be together. I stared at her, trying to process this information. My perfect sister, who had never gotten so much as a speeding ticket, had been having an affair. So, leave Trevor, I said finally. Call off the wedding. It'll be messy and embarrassing, but it's better than marrying him while you're in love with someone else. I'm not in love with Daniel either. Her voice was barely a whisper. That's what makes this so much worse. I don't love Trevor the way he deserves, but I don't love Daniel either. I wanted to feel something, anything. My whole life has been so planned, so controlled, so perfect. When Daniel texted me, it felt like the first spontaneous thing I'd done in years. A knock on the door interrupted us. Girls? Mom's voice carried through the wood. The photographer wants to start getting ready shots in 20 minutes. We'll be right out, Mom, I called back, then turned to Madison. Okay, so you made a mistake, a big one, but you can still fix this. Call Trevor now, explain everything, and I can't. Madison was shaking her head frantically. Emma, you don't understand. It's not just an affair. My heart was already sinking, but somehow I knew it was about to get worse. Daniel's not just getting divorced because his marriage was failing. She could barely get the words out. He's getting divorced because his wife found out about us. She hired a private investigator, and he got photos of me, of us, at that hotel in Chicago. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Oh my God, Madison. His wife is Rebecca Morrison. She looked at me meaningfully, waiting for me to connect the dots. Rebecca Morrison, as in Morrison Industries, as in the family that owned half the businesses in Cedar Falls, including the bank where Dad worked as a manager, as in the family that had been friends with the Hoffmans for 3 generations. She knows, Madison continued. Rebecca knows about the affair, she knows who I am, and she's furious. Daniel says she's been making threats, talking about ruining my career, destroying my reputation. But why hasn't she done anything yet? Madison's laugh was bitter. Because she's sadistic. She's waiting for maximum impact.
Daniel thinks she might be planning to expose everything at the wedding. The bathroom door rattled again. Madison, honey? This time it was Trevor's mother, her voice sweet but insistent. We really do need to start getting ready, dear. I helped Madison to her feet, both of us moving like we were underwater. What are you going to do? She splashed cold water on her face, trying to wash away the evidence of her tears. If I call off the wedding now, I'll have to explain why. Trevor will be devastated, both families will be humiliated, and Rebecca will probably still destroy me anyway out of spite. And if you go through with it? If I go through with it, I'm gambling that Rebecca won't make a scene at my wedding. But if she does? Madison met my eyes in the bathroom mirror. Emma, if she stands up during the ceremony and tells everyone about the affair, it won't just destroy my marriage. Think about what it'll do to Trevor's family, to our parents. Dad could lose his job. Rebecca's family has enough influence to make that happen.
Madison Elizabeth Pierce! Mom's voice was sharp now, tinged with the authority that had gotten us through childhood tantrums and teenage rebellion. Open this door right now or I'm coming in anyway. Madison straightened her shoulders, and I watched her transform back into the bride everyone expected to see. The composure settled over her like armor, hiding the terrified woman who had been falling apart on the bathroom floor. "Coming, Mom," she called out, her voice steady and bright. She turned to me one last time. "Emma, promise me something. If everything goes wrong today, if Rebecca shows up, if the truth comes out, if this whole thing explodes, promise me you'll look after Trevor. He doesn't deserve what's about to happen to him. Madison, promise me." I nodded, though my throat felt too tight to speak. Madison opened the bathroom door, stepping out into the chaos of wedding preparation with a smile that would have fooled anyone who didn't know her secret. But I stayed behind for a moment, staring at my reflection in the mirror and wondering if I was about to watch my sister's life and our entire family fall apart in front of 300 witnesses. The next 2 hours passed in a nightmare of wedding preparations that felt increasingly surreal. Madison submitted to hair, makeup, and photography with the mechanical precision of someone going through the motions of her own execution. I stayed close, watching for signs she might bolt, but she had locked herself so deep into performance mode that even I couldn't read her anymore. The makeup artist gushed about how radiant she looked. The photographer captured shot after shot of her putting on earrings, adjusting her veil, laughing with her bridesmaids. To everyone else, she was the picture-perfect bride. But I noticed things others missed, how her smile never reached her eyes, how she flinched when Trevor's sister mentioned the honeymoon, how she kept checking her phone with increasing desperation, though no messages seemed to bring relief. At 11:30, with the ceremony still an hour away, chaos struck from an unexpected direction. Jessica came running up the main staircase, her face flushed and her carefully styled hair coming undone. "Madison, we have a problem! A big problem!" Madison went rigid. "What kind of problem?" "The caterers are freaking out. Apparently someone called in a bomb threat to the venue. The police are here, and they're saying they might need to evacuate everyone until they can do a sweep." My first thought was relief. Maybe this was the universe giving Madison an out. But then I saw her expression. Pure terror. "A bomb threat?" Her voice was barely audible. When did? "About 20 minutes ago. Some woman called the main line and said there was an explosive device somewhere on the property." Jessica was trying to stay calm, but panic was creeping into her voice. "The police are taking it seriously because of all the high-profile guests." Madison's phone buzzed. She looked at it and went completely white. "What is it?" I demanded. She held up the screen. Another message from Daniel. "Rebecca's not here yet. Something's wrong. She left the house an hour ago saying she had one last errand before the wedding. Emma, I think she made the bomb threat." The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. Rebecca Morrison wasn't planning to make a scene during the ceremony. She was planning to shut down the entire wedding. "We have to evacuate," Jessica said. "The police are being really clear about this." But Madison was shaking her head frantically.
No, no, this is exactly what she wants. She wants to ruin everything, embarrass both families, and make sure this wedding never happen. Madison, if there's actually a bomb, there's no bomb. Her voice cracked with desperation. Don't you see? This is psychological warfare. Rebecca wants me to know she has complete control over my life. She can destroy my wedding, my reputation, my family's standing in this community, and there's nothing I can do to stop her. Footsteps thundered up the stairs, and Trevor appeared, still in his dress shirt and pants, his jacket abandoned somewhere downstairs. Madison, thank God you're okay. He pulled her into his arms, and I watched her face crumble for just a moment before she forced it back into composure. The police want everyone out while they search the grounds. It's probably nothing, but they're not taking any chances. How long will it take?
They're saying 2 to 3 hours minimum. We'll have to postpone the ceremony until this afternoon, maybe evening. Trevor's voice was steady, practical. It's not ideal, but what matters is everyone's safety. Madison pulled back to look at him, really look at him, and I saw something shift in her expression. Here was Trevor, facing the potential destruction of his wedding day, and his only concern was her safety and the safety of their guests, while she had been lying to him for months. Trevor, I need to tell you something. The words came out before I think she even realized she was going to say them. Madison, not now, Jessica interrupted. We need to get downstairs and… No, now. Madison's voice was stronger suddenly, more decisive than I'd heard it all morning. Trevor, before we go anywhere, before any of this goes further, I need to tell you the truth about something. Trevor's expression shifted from concern to confusion. What truth? Madison, what are you talking about? She took a shaky breath. The bomb threat? I don't think it's random. I think someone made it specifically to ruin our wedding. Someone who has a reason to want to hurt me. Who would want to hurt you? Trevor's voice was gentle, protective. Madison, you're being paranoid. This is probably just some crank call. I had an affair. The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. Trevor stopped mid-sentence, his mouth still open. Jessica made a small choking sound. The only noise was the distant sound of police radios crackling from downstairs. What? Trevor's voice was barely a whisper. 3 months ago, with my ex-boyfriend from college. It was stupid and selfish, and I'm so sorry. But his wife found out, and she's been threatening to expose me. I think she called in the bomb threat to stop our wedding. Trevor stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. You cheated on me? Yes. 3 months ago, while we were planning our wedding, while I was telling everyone how lucky I was to marry you. His voice was getting louder, sharper. Who is he? Daniel Rodriguez. You don't know him. Rodriguez? Trevor's face went through a series of expressions as he processed the name. Daniel Rodriguez, who's married to Rebecca Morrison? Madison nodded miserably. Jesus Christ, Madison. Trevor ran his hands through his hair, pacing away from her and then back. Rebecca Morrison? Do you have any idea what her family can do to us? To my family? Trevor, I'm so sorry. Sorry? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're sorry? Madison, my father does business with Morrison Industries. My mother is on 3 charity boards with Rebecca's mother. Our families have been friends for decades. And you… He couldn't finish the sentence. I know I've made a terrible mistake, Madison said, tears streaming down her face now, ruining her carefully applied makeup. But I'm telling you now because I can't marry you with this secret between us. You deserve better than that. You deserve better than me. Trevor was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. How many times? What? How many times did you sleep with him? Madison flinched. Trevor, please. How many times? Twice. Just twice. Just twice, he repeated hollowly. Just twice, while I was working 16-hour shifts at the hospital and coming home exhausted to help you address wedding invitations. The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. A police officer appeared, looking harried and official.
Folks, I'm sorry, but we need everyone out of the building immediately. We've got canine units coming in for the sweep, and we can't have any civilians on the property. Trevor looked at Madison, then at the officer, then back at Madison. Officer, I need 5 minutes, please. Sir, I really can't. 5 minutes. I'm Dr. Hoffman's son. You know my family. 5 minutes, and then we'll be out. The officer hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes, not 1 second more. As soon as his footsteps faded down the stairs, Trevor turned back to Madison. I have one question, and I want a completely honest answer. Madison nodded, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Do you love me? The silence stretched between them. Madison opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I want to love you, she whispered finally. I tried so hard to love you the way you deserve. That's not what I asked. More silence. No, she said finally, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Not the way I should, not the way you love me. Trevor nodded slowly, like he was processing information he'd suspected but never wanted to confirm. Then we're done. He started toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, Madison, I really thought you were different. I thought you were someone I could trust with everything. Trevor, wait. But he was already gone, his footsteps echoing down the grand staircase, leaving Madison standing in her wedding dress with tears streaming down her face, and 300 guests waiting outside for a ceremony that was never going to happen. The evacuation turned the Hoffman estate into a circus. 300 wedding guests milled around the front lawn, some confused, others angry, many treating it like an unexpected social hour. The older guests sought shade under the ancient oak trees, while children ran between the police cars with wide-eyed excitement. I found myself in the surreal position of helping manage a crowd of people who had no idea the wedding had just imploded upstairs. Emma, Aunt Carol grabbed my arm as I tried to make my way through the chaos. Where's Madison? Is she okay? And what's this nonsense about a bomb? She's processing everything, I said carefully. The police are being cautious.
But even as I spoke, I could see the Hoffman family huddled near the main gate. Dr. Richard Hoffman was on his phone, his face grim. Trevor's mother stood beside him, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. And Trevor himself sat on the stone retaining wall, still in his wedding shirt, staring at nothing. The sight of him made my chest ache. 3 hours ago, he'd been glowing with happiness, talking about his future with Madison. Now he looked like someone had died. Emma! My father appeared at my elbow, looking frazzled. Have you seen your mother? She went looking for Madison 20 minutes ago, and I can't find either of them. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean you can't find them? I've checked everywhere. The police cleared the house, so they're not inside. But your mother's car is still here, and Madison's isn't. My blood ran cold. Madison had run. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. It went straight to voicemail. The person you are trying to reach is not available. Please leave a message after the tone. Madison, it's Emma. Please call me back. Everyone's worried and we need to know you're okay. But even as I left the message, I knew she wasn't going to call back. Madison had done what she'd been fighting all morning. She'd chosen flight over fight. Mr. Pierce? Dr. Hoffman approached us, his usual warm demeanor replaced by something cold and professional. I need to speak with you privately. Dad's face went pale. Of course. What's this about? I think you know what this is about. They walked toward the garden, leaving me with a growing sense of dread. If Dr. Hoffman was confronting Dad about Madison's affair, it meant the secret was already spreading beyond the immediate family. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Tell your family the truth comes out eventually. Some people need to learn there are consequences for their actions. R.M. Rebecca Morrison. She was here, somewhere in this crowd, watching her plan unfold. I scanned the guests, looking for a woman I'd only seen in society page photos. There, standing near the catering trucks, wearing a black dress that seemed inappropriately somber for a wedding. She was watching the Hoffman family with cold satisfaction.
Our eyes met across the lawn. Rebecca Morrison was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with sharp features and perfectly styled blonde hair. She didn't look like someone who'd just made a bomb threat. She looked like someone who'd won a chess match. She started walking toward me. "You must be Emma," she said when she reached me. Her voice was cultured, polite, and deadly. "Madison's sister. I can see the family resemblance." "Mrs. Morrison." "Please, call me Rebecca. After all, our families are about to become much better acquainted." Her smile was razor-sharp. "Where is your dear sister, by the way? I was hoping to congratulate her on her special day." "She's dealing with the evacuation situation." "Ah, yes, the evacuation. So unfortunate, these random security threats. Though I suppose it's better to be safe than sorry, don't you think?" She was toying with me, and we both knew it. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. "Justice," she replied simply. "Your sister destroyed my marriage. Did you know that? Daniel and I have been trying to work things out for months, going to counseling, doing everything we could to save what we built together. And then your perfect sister decided she needed a little excitement in her perfectly planned life." "I'm sorry about your marriage, but nothing." Rebecca's composure cracked slightly, revealing the fury underneath. "Do you know what it's like to find out your husband has been cheating through photographs? Professional surveillance photos of them checking into a hotel together? Of them kissing in a restaurant where we had our first date?" I didn't know what to say to that. "Madison gets to walk down the aisle in a designer dress and pretend to be the innocent bride, while I get to be the bitter ex-wife who couldn't keep her husband satisfied. Does that seem fair to you, Emma?" "The wedding's off," I said quietly. "Madison told Trevor everything. It's over." Rebecca's eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with suspicion. "You're lying."
"I'm not," she confessed during the evacuation. "Trevor ended it. There's no wedding happening today." For the first time, Rebecca looked genuinely thrown. She actually told him? Everything. About Daniel, about the affair, about you. Rebecca stared at me for a long moment, then laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Well, I'll be damned. I didn't think she had it in her." She paused, considering. "Though I suppose it doesn't matter now. The damage is already done, isn't it? The Hoffmans know. Your parents will know soon enough if they don't already, and word will spread through Cedar Falls like wildfire." She was right. In a town this size, a canceled wedding between two prominent families would be front-page news for weeks. "I hope it was worth it," Rebecca continued. "The little thrill your sister got from sleeping with my husband, because it's going to cost her everything. She knows that." "Does she? Because from where I'm standing, Madison got to make her choices and deal with her consequences on her own timeline. But the rest of us, Trevor, your parents, my children, we don't get that luxury. We get to live with the fallout of her decisions." Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the main gate. Mom had returned, and she was shouting. "She's gone! Madison's gone! Her car's missing, her room is empty, and she left this." Mom was waving a piece of paper in the air, her usually perfect composure completely shattered. Dad rushed to her side, taking the note and reading it quickly. His face went from confusion to shock to something close to devastation. "What does it say?" someone called out. Dad looked around at the crowd of wedding guests, all of them now focused on our family drama. His voice, when he spoke, was barely audible. "She says she's sorry, that she can't face everyone after what she's done, that she needs time to figure out how to make things right." "What did she do?" Trevor's mother demanded, her voice shrill with emotion. Dad looked helplessly at Dr. Hoffman, who gave him a grim nod. "Madison had an affair," Dad said simply. "She was unfaithful to Trevor, and she couldn't go through with the wedding." The silence that followed was deafening. 300 people processed the information that the perfect bride had just abandoned her own wedding because of an affair.
Then the whispers started. Low murmurs spread through the crowd like ripples in a pond. I caught fragments. Always knew she was too good to be true. Poor Trevor. What kind of family? The Hoffmans must be mortified. Rebecca Morrison stood beside me, watching our family's public humiliation with obvious satisfaction. Like I said, murmured, consequences. But as I watched my parents comfort each other while 300 wedding guests stared and whispered, I realized Rebecca had miscalculated something crucial. She'd assumed destroying Madison would be enough revenge. She had no idea that Madison's disappearance was just the beginning of what her bomb threat would uncover. The police completed their sweep by 3 p.m., finding nothing more dangerous than a champagne cork that had rolled under a catering table. The bomb threat had been exactly what we suspected, a hoax designed to create chaos. But by then, the real explosion had already happened. Most of the wedding guests had left by the time the all-clear was given, some out of embarrassment, others out of respect for both families' obvious distress. The few who remained were mostly close relatives who felt obligated to help with the cleanup, both physical and emotional. I was helping stack unused chairs when my phone rang. Madison's name appeared on the screen. "Thank God," I breathed, stepping away from the others. "Madison, where are you? Everyone's worried sick." "I'm at the airport." Her voice sounded hollow, defeated. "I'm taking a flight to Portland. My law school friend Sarah lives there, and she said I could stay with her for a while." "Madison, you can't just run away from this. Mom and Dad are devastated. They don't understand why you left without talking to them." "Because I'm a coward," she said simply. "Because facing them, facing Trevor, facing everyone I've hurt, I couldn't do it. I thought if I just disappeared, maybe it would hurt less for everyone." "That's not how it works, and you know it." "Emma, there's something else, something I didn't tell you this morning." My heart sank. What now? The private investigator Rebecca hired, he didn't just get photos of Daniel and me. He dug deeper, into my finances, my work history, everything. Why would that matter? Madison was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, "Do you remember when I got that big bonus last year? The one that let me put the down payment on my condo?" "Of course. You said it was for winning that corporate merger case." "It wasn't a bonus." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. "Madison, what are you saying?" "The merger case, our client was Morrison Industries, Rebecca's family company. I had access to confidential information about their acquisition strategy, information that would have been valuable to their competitors." My blood turned to ice. "Please tell me you didn't." "I sold it. To Blackstone Corp. They were Morrison Industries' biggest rival for the acquisition, and they were willing to pay $500,000 for inside information." Jesus Christ, Madison. I didn't think anyone would ever find out. The deal went through, Morrison Industries won the acquisition anyway, and I thought that was the end of it. But Rebecca's investigator traced the payment to me. That's corporate espionage. That's a felony." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Emma, if this comes out, I won't just lose my job. I'll lose my law license. I could go to prison." "Does Rebecca know?" "She knows. She's been sitting on it, probably planning to use it as leverage if I didn't confess about the affair voluntarily. Now that everything's blown up anyway, she could destroy you completely."
She will destroy me completely. The question is how much collateral damage she's willing to cause to do it. A chill ran through me as I realized what Madison meant. Dad's job. Dad's job, Mom's volunteer positions, your teaching career if this scandal gets big enough. Emma, Rebecca Morrison doesn't just want to punish me, she wants to make an example of our entire family. Madison, you have to come back. You have to face this. I can't, not yet. I need time to figure out what to do, how to protect everyone else from what I've done. You can't protect us by running away. But the line was already dead. I stood there staring at my phone, trying to process what I just learned.
My sister wasn't just an adulteress, she was a criminal. And Rebecca Morrison had enough evidence to destroy not just Madison, but potentially our entire family. Emma, Mom approached, her eyes red from crying. Was that Madison? Is she okay? I looked at my mother, a kind, trusting mom who still believed her daughter had just made a mistake about love, and realized I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. She's safe, I said instead. She's with a friend. She just needs some time. Time for what? Time to let this scandal destroy both families while she hides somewhere? Dad joined us, his anger evident. I've spent 30 years building my reputation at that bank, Emma. 30 years. And now, because of Madison's selfishness? He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. I could see it in his eyes. Dad already knew his career was over. In a town like Cedar Falls, being the father of the woman who humiliated the Hoffman family was a professional death sentence. Mr. Pierce, a voice interrupted us. We turned to see a man in an expensive suit approaching, flanked by two people who were obviously lawyers based on their briefcases and predatory expressions. I'm Marcus Webb, legal counsel for Morrison Industries. I need to speak with you about your daughter. Dad's face went pale. What about her? I think you know what about her. We have evidence of serious criminal activity involving corporate espionage and theft of proprietary information. We'd prefer to handle this matter quietly, but that will require your daughter's cooperation. I don't know what you're talking about, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Your daughter sold confidential information about our client's business strategy to a competitor for $500,000. We have bank records, communication logs, and photographic evidence of her meetings with Blackstone Corporation representatives. Mom made a small sound, like all the air had been pushed out of her lungs. That's impossible, she whispered. Madison would never. She's not a criminal. Webb's smile was sharp and professional. Mrs. Pierce, I understand this is difficult to accept, but we have ironclad evidence. The question now is whether we pursue criminal charges immediately or whether we can reach some kind of arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Dad asked quietly. Full restitution of the money, plus damages. Immediate resignation from her law firm with a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and cooperation with our investigation into whether anyone else at her firm was involved. And if she refuses? Then we turn everything over to the FBI. Corporate espionage is a federal crime, Mr. Pierce. Your daughter could be looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. I felt like I was drowning. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about Madison's entire life being systematically destroyed by a woman who had the resources and the motivation to do it thoroughly. We need time to discuss this with Madison, Dad said. Of course. You have 48 hours to produce your daughter and her agreement to our terms. After that, we file criminal charges. Webb handed Dad a business card and walked away with his legal team, leaving us standing in the ruins of what had been supposed to be the happiest day of Madison's life. Emma, Mom's voice was shaking, what aren't you telling us? That phone call from Madison, there was something else, wasn't there? I looked at my parents, both of them already devastated by what they knew, and realized I had no choice. We need to sit down, I said quietly. There's more, a lot more. As we walked toward the empty reception tent, I could see Rebecca Morrison in the distance, standing by her car and watching us with cold satisfaction. She had orchestrated this entire nightmare with the precision of a military campaign, and we were all just collateral damage in her war against my sister. But what she didn't know was that Madison's disappearance had left me holding all the pieces of a puzzle that was about to reveal secrets she never expected to come to light. Telling my parents about Madison's corporate espionage was like watching them age 10 years in 10 minutes. Mom sat in stunned silence, while Dad paced the empty reception tent, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and devastation. $500,000, he kept repeating. She stole $500,000 and used it to buy a condo, while I've been working 60-hour weeks just to keep up with the mortgage. Richard, please sit down, Mom said quietly. Pacing isn't going to fix this. Fix this? Linda, how do we fix this? Our daughter is a criminal, a federal criminal, and she's disappeared, leaving us to face the consequences. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. You need to see this before you make any decisions. DR. Daniel Rodriguez. Madison's affair partner was reaching out to me directly. I'll be right back, I told my parents, stepping outside the tent to check my email. The message contained a single PDF attachment. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a legal document, an affidavit signed by Daniel Rodriguez, dated 3 days ago. In it, he swore under penalty of perjury that Rebecca Morrison had approached him 6 months earlier, before Madison's affair began, with a proposition. According to Daniel's statement, Rebecca had discovered Madison's role in the Morrison Industries through her family connections. She'd learned about the corporate espionage, but hadn't reported it. Instead, she'd devised a plan to destroy Madison personally and professionally. Rebecca had orchestrated Daniel's contact with Madison. She'd encouraged the affair, even provided opportunities for them to meet by giving Daniel information about Madison's schedule. She had hired the private investigator not to discover the affair, but to document it for maximum damage.
The bomb threat, the legal ultimatum, even Daniel's current divorce, it was all part of Rebecca's calculated revenge. But the most damning revelation was in the final paragraph. Rebecca had evidence that Madison wasn't the only lawyer at her firm involved in corporate espionage. She'd been systematically collecting information on illegal activities within the legal community for months, building a network of blackmail material. My phone rang, Daniel's number. "Did you read it?" he asked without preamble. "Yes, is it true?" Every word. "Emma, your sister isn't a criminal mastermind. She's a victim. Rebecca played her like a chess piece. But Madison still took the money. She still sold the information. Because Rebecca made sure she was desperate for it. Do you know why Madison needed that down payment so badly?" I frowned. She said she wanted to establish equity, build wealth. She was being blackmailed. The world tilted sideways. What? Last year, Madison made a mistake on a case, a clerical error that cost a client millions. She managed to cover it up, but someone found out and demanded payment to stay quiet. Madison had been paying blackmail for months before Rebecca approached her with the corporate espionage opportunity. Who was blackmailing her? Someone at her law firm. Madison never told me who, but she was terrified of being exposed as incompetent. She said it would destroy her career. I sat down heavily on a nearby stone wall. So Rebecca knew Madison was already compromised and vulnerable. Exactly. Rebecca didn't just want revenge for the affair. She wanted to destroy someone she saw as weak and corruptible. Madison was the perfect target. Why are you telling me this now? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Because I've been a coward. I let Rebecca manipulate me into starting the affair. I let her use me to hurt Madison, and I stood by while she orchestrated this whole nightmare. But seeing Madison run away, seeing what this is doing to your family, I can't be part of it anymore. What do you want me to do with this information? Use it. Rebecca thinks she holds all the cards, but this affidavit proves she orchestrated a criminal conspiracy. If you can get Madison to come back and tell the truth about the blackmail, we might be able to turn this whole thing around. I hung up and stared at the PDF on my phone. This changed everything, but it also made everything infinitely more complicated. I was still processing when I heard shouting from inside the reception tent. I ran back to find my parents in the middle of a heated argument. "Should have known something was wrong," Dad was saying. "A daughter doesn't just become a criminal overnight, Linda. There had to be signs." "Don't you dare blame me for this," Mom shot back. "You were so proud of Madison's success, bragging to everyone at the bank about your daughter, the hotshot lawyer. You never questioned where the money came from either." "Stop," I stepped between them. "Both of you, stop. Fighting each other isn't going to help Madison or our family." "Then what will happen?" Dad demanded.
Because in 47 hours, the FBI is going to arrest our daughter for federal crimes. Our family name will be destroyed, I'll lose my job, and Madison will go to prison. What exactly is going to help that situation? I took a deep breath. What if I told you that Madison might not be the criminal we think she is? I showed them Daniel's affidavit, watching their faces as they processed the information. Mom's expression shifted from devastation to hope to anger. Dad just looked confused. I don't understand, he said finally. Are you saying Rebecca Morrison framed Madison? I'm saying Rebecca Morrison manipulated Madison into a situation where she felt she had no choice but to commit a crime. And if we can prove that, along with the blackmail Madison was already dealing with, we might be able to fight this. But Madison still took the money, Mom pointed out. Even if she was manipulated, she still committed corporate espionage. Which is why she needs to come back and cooperate with authorities. If she can provide evidence about the original blackmail and Rebecca's manipulation, she might be able to negotiate a plea deal. Dad shook his head. Emma, you're talking about our daughter testifying against some of the most powerful people in Cedar Falls. The Morrisons don't just have money, they have connections throughout the state government, the legal system, everything. What makes you think Madison would survive going up against them? Before I could answer, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized, Trevor. Emma, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something about Madison. Trevor, I'm so sorry about everything. Just don't. I'm not calling about the affair. I'm calling because something doesn't add up. What do you mean? This morning, when Madison was having her breakdown, she said something that's been bothering me. She said she couldn't marry me because she'd done something unforgivable, something that would destroy everyone who loved her.
The affair? No, Emma. She was talking about something bigger than the affair, something she was more afraid of than losing me. His voice was quiet, thoughtful. I've been thinking about it all day, and I realized Madison wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of what would happen to me if I was married to her when the truth came out. My heart started racing. Trevor, she was trying to protect me, wasn't she, from whatever else she's involved in? I looked at my parents, both of them watching my side of the conversation with a growing alarm. Trevor, I think you should come over here. There are things you need to know, things that might help Madison, but it's not safe to talk about over the phone. I'll be right there. As I hung up, I realized that Daniel's affidavit had done more than just reveal Rebecca's manipulation. It had given us our first real weapon in a fight that was about to get much more dangerous. Because if Rebecca Morrison was willing to orchestrate corporate espionage and blackmail to destroy one person, what else was she capable of? And how far would she go to protect herself when she realized her carefully constructed revenge plot was about to be exposed? Trevor arrived 30 minutes later, still in his wedding shirt, but now wearing jeans instead of his formal pants. The sight of him walking into what should have been his reception venue was surreal. Behind him came his father, Dr. Richard Hoffman, looking grim and exhausted. "Before you say anything," Trevor said, addressing all of us, "I need you to know that I'm not here to reconcile with Madison. What she did, the lies, the betrayal, I can't get past that. But I also can't shake the feeling that there's something bigger going on here." Dr. Hoffman stepped forward. Trevor insisted I come. Frankly, I thought he'd lost his mind, wanting to help the woman who humiliated our family. But he made some compelling points about inconsistencies in Madison's behavior. I handed Trevor Daniel's affidavit. Trevor was a doctor, trained to analyze complex information quickly, and I watched his expression shift as he read. His father read over his shoulder, his face growing increasingly troubled. "This is elaborate," Dr. Hoffman said slowly. "If this document is accurate, Rebecca Morrison orchestrated a conspiracy that spans months of planning." "This changes everything," Trevor said finally. "If this is true, Madison didn't just cheat on me. She was manipulated into cheating by the same person who's now trying to destroy her." "Son, you realize what you're suggesting?" Dr. Hoffman's voice carried a warning. "The Morrison family has been friends with our family for generations. Rebecca's father helped establish my medical practice. If we accuse them of criminal conspiracy..."
Then we better be right, Trevor finished. But Dad, think about it. Why would Madison confess to the affair this morning unless she was genuinely trying to protect me from something worse? She could have gone through with the wedding, hidden everything, and dealt with Rebecca's threats privately. Dad ran his hands through his hair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. The question is, what do we do about it? Even if this affidavit is legitimate, we're talking about going up against one of the most powerful families in the state. We call Madison back, Trevor said without hesitation, and we fight. Dr. Hoffman shook his head. Trevor, you don't understand the position this puts our family in. My hospital receives significant funding from Morrison charitable foundations. My research grants, my department's budget, all of it could be at risk. So we just let Rebecca destroy an innocent woman to protect our financial interests? Trevor's voice was sharp with disgust. Madison isn't innocent, his father replied firmly. She committed adultery and corporate espionage. Those are facts, regardless of Rebecca's involvement. But the context matters, I interjected. If Madison was being systematically manipulated and blackmailed, then she should have come to authorities instead of committing crimes. Dr. Hoffman cut me off. I'm sorry for what your family is going through, but I have to think about my own family's welfare. Trevor stared at his father with something approaching shock. Dad, are you seriously suggesting we abandon the right thing because it's financially inconvenient? I'm suggesting we be realistic about what we can accomplish against the Morrison family machine. Trevor, you don't understand what you're up against. Mom protested. The Morrison family controls half the businesses in this county, sits on university boards, has connections throughout state government. The Morrison family just made a mistake, Trevor interrupted, his jaw set with determination. They assumed Madison was isolated, that she'd face this alone. They didn't count on her having support from people willing to risk everything for the truth. The tension in the tent was suffocating. Two families, bound together by a wedding that would never happen, now forced to choose between self-preservation and justice. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Madison. Emma, I saw the news, she said before I could even speak. Someone leaked the story to the press. It's all over social media. The canceled wedding, the affair, everything. But that's not why I'm calling. I put her on speaker. What's wrong now? Rebecca Morrison called me directly. She knows exactly where I am. She knows I'm staying with Sarah Chen from law school. And she somehow got my friend's address. Emma, she's not just threatening legal action anymore. She's threatening Sarah, too. Dr. Hoffman's face went pale. What kind of threats? There was a pause. Madison's voice was shaky when she continued. Rebecca told me she has investigators looking into Sarah's immigration status. Sarah's been in the country on a work visa for 3 years, and apparently there were some paperwork delays during her transition from student to worker status. Rebecca claims she has evidence that Sarah worked illegally for 6 weeks while her paperwork was processed. That's a federal immigration violation, I said, my heart sinking. Exactly. Rebecca said that unless I agree to her terms by tomorrow morning, she'll report Sarah to ICE. Sarah could be deported, lose her law license, everything. Trevor exchanged a look with his father. Madison, what terms is she demanding now? There was a long pause. Trevor, you're there? Why are you… Never mind. I don't have time to process this right now. Rebecca wants complete financial restitution, plus punitive damages. We're talking about $2 million. She wants a public confession of corporate espionage that specifically names me as the mastermind. And her voice broke. She wants a signed statement saying that I seduced Daniel specifically to gain access to Morrison family business secrets. She's trying to make me confess to being both a criminal and a sexual predator. Dr. Hoffman sank into one of the reception chairs. $2 million? That would bankrupt both our families. There's more, Madison continued. She's also demanding that I provide information about other lawyers at my firm who might have engaged in similar activities. She wants me to become an informant against my former colleagues. Jesus, Dad whispered. She's trying to turn you into her personal weapon against the entire legal community. Madison, Trevor's voice was steady, almost clinical. I need you to listen to me very carefully. We have evidence that Rebecca orchestrated this entire situation. Daniel Rodriguez has signed an affidavit admitting that Rebecca manipulated both of you from the beginning. Silence stretched across the phone connection. Madison? I prompted. She what? Madison's voice was barely a whisper. Trevor, what are you talking about? Rebecca planned everything. The initial contact with Daniel, the opportunities for you two to meet, the affair itself. She manipulated both of you into a situation she could exploit. But the corporate espionage, the blackmail I was already facing, were real vulnerabilities that Rebecca discovered and exploited, Trevor said firmly. You made choices, Madison, but they were choices made while under systematic manipulation and coercion. That matters legally. Trevor, why are you helping me? After everything I did to you? After I humiliated you in front of 300 people? Trevor was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Hoffman watched his son with an unreadable expression. Because yesterday morning, when you were falling apart in that bathroom, you weren't scared of losing me. You were terrified of what would happen to me if I stayed with you. You shattered my heart, Madison, but you were trying to protect me while you did it. That tells me something about who you really are underneath all the lies. I heard Madison start crying, deep, wrenching sobs that spoke to months of bottled-up guilt and terror. Madison, we need you to come back, I said. Tonight. We're going to meet with a federal attorney tomorrow morning and turn over Daniel's affidavit along with all the evidence we can gather. But we need you here to corroborate everything and provide testimony about the original blackmail situation. I can't, Emma. If I come back and this doesn't work, I'll go to federal prison, and Sarah will get deported. I can't be responsible for destroying another innocent person's life. If you don't come back, you'll definitely go to prison, Dad said heavily. And Rebecca Morrison will systematically destroy our entire family, Trevor's family, and anyone else who gets in her way. She's already proven she's willing to threaten an innocent woman in Portland just to maintain control over you. Madison, Trevor's voice was gentle but firm. I've seen sociopaths in the ER, people who hurt others for their own gratification. Rebecca Morrison fits that profile perfectly. She's not going to stop with you. She'll keep finding new victims, new ways to exercise power over people. The only way to stop someone like that is to expose them completely. Another long silence. When Madison spoke again, her voice was stronger. There's a red-eye flight leaving Portland at 11 p.m. I can be back by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. But Trevor, I need you to understand that if we do this, if we really go to war with the Morrison family, they will try to destroy everyone who stands against them. Your medical career, your father's hospital, Emma's teaching position, none of it will be safe. Dr. Hoffman spoke up unexpectedly. Madison, I owe you an apology. I was so focused on protecting my family's interests that I forgot we're supposed to protect what's right. If my son is willing to risk everything to help you, then maybe I should remember why I raised him to have that kind of integrity. Dr. Hoffman, you don't have to.
Yes, I do. Rebecca Morrison has been terrorizing you for months, and instead of standing up to a bully, I was ready to let her win because it was convenient. That's not the man I want to be. As soon as we hung up with Madison, the real planning began. Daniel arrived an hour later with boxes of documents, not just his affidavit, but phone records, emails, and financial transactions that painted a picture of Rebecca's systematic manipulation spanning back over a year. She's been doing this to other people too, Daniel explained, spreading papers across one of the reception tables. I started digging after I signed the affidavit, and I found at least 6 other professionals who've been targeted by Rebecca's schemes. A city councilman who voted against one of her development projects, a judge who ruled against Morrison Industries in a zoning dispute, a newspaper editor who wrote unflattering articles about her charity work. Trevor studied the documents with the focused attention he usually reserved for medical charts. This is systematic. She's not just seeking revenge, she's building a network of control throughout the community. Which is why we need to move fast, I said. The longer Rebecca has to prepare, the more people she can threaten to keep quiet.
Dr. Hoffman had been making phone calls, using his medical network to find contacts in federal law enforcement. I reached out to a colleague who works with the FBI on medical fraud cases. He's connecting us with someone who specializes in corruption and blackmail conspiracies. The federal attorney was Sarah Chen, coincidentally sharing a name with Madison's friend in Portland. She agreed to meet with us at 7 a.m., before normal business hours, to maintain confidentiality. What about Rebecca, when she realizes we're fighting back? That's why we're moving so quickly. Once we file the countercomplaint with the FBI, Rebecca's criminal conspiracy charges will protect Madison from her original threats. The next 18 hours were a blur of legal preparation, media management, and family crisis counseling. Madison's flight landed at 6 a.m., and she looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 days. The meeting with federal attorney Sarah Chen went better than any of us had hoped. After reviewing Daniel's affidavit, the evidence of Madison's original blackmail situation, and the timeline of Rebecca's manipulation, Chen was confident they could build a strong case. "This is textbook criminal conspiracy," she explained. "Rebecca Morrison used systematic manipulation, blackmail, and coercion to force your daughter into committing crimes that served her personal revenge agenda. Madison will face consequences for the corporate espionage, but we're talking about probation and restitution, not federal prison." The real bombshell came when Chen contacted the FBI field office. "They've been investigating Morrison Industries for months," she told us after getting off the phone. "Apparently, Madison isn't the only victim. Rebecca has been systematically collecting blackmail material on dozens of professionals throughout the region. The FBI has been trying to find someone willing to come forward as a witness." By noon, the story had completely flipped. Rebecca Morrison was arrested on federal conspiracy and blackmail charges. The local news coverage shifted from "Perfect Bride's wedding scandal" to "Morrison Industries heiress arrested in blackmail conspiracy." Madison pleaded guilty to corporate espionage but cooperated fully with federal authorities. She received 2 years probation, community service, and had to pay restitution. More importantly, her testimony helped convict Rebecca Morrison, who received 8 years in federal prison. The aftermath wasn't easy for any of us. Madison's legal career was over, and she eventually moved to Denver to start fresh in a different field. Trevor and Madison never reconciled romantically. Too much trust had been broken for that, but they did eventually become friends again. Dad kept his job at the bank, largely because the community rallied around our family once the truth about Rebecca's manipulation came out. Mom threw herself into victim advocacy work, helping other families who'd been targeted by powerful people seeking revenge. As for me, I learned that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a family, the complete destruction of everything you thought you knew about each other, can also be the thing that makes you stronger. Madison's wedding day had indeed destroyed our family in one night, but it also revealed that we were tougher, more loyal, and more willing to fight for each other than any of us had ever imagined. The perfect sister's perfect wedding was a disaster, but the imperfect family that emerged from the wreckage, we turned out to be pretty amazing. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.